If you're new, we are building a brand new 2025 Jeep Wrangler 41 edition to pretty much replicate what one of these would have looked like in 1941. To do so, there are a lot of changes that need to happen to this build, and in today's video, we are covering the rear bumper. It's kind of funny just how clean it looks. Is like, you don't see this anymore. There's absolutely nothing like this on the market, and it's something that we had to completely design, fabricate, and install all from scratch. The most robust bumpers ever, because I think you guys are really gonna be amazed at how we pulled this off, but let's show you how we did it. So back in the day, these Jeeps would have rolled out of the factory with a solid one-piece tub and a tire that was located offset to the right when you're looking at the back of the Jeep, and then next to it, a jerry can right on the left. The biggest problem though with the history of this is that these new Jeeps are a lot different from a World War II Willy MB. And when I say a lot different, they're pretty much in a completely different category. So the first thing I looked at in the rear bumper was it has to be flat. The rear bumper itself down below was completely flat on the Willy's MB, and the only two things it really had was a center pintle hitch and then two bumperettes on the exterior of it. Now, while we didn't opt to go with some of these options, I knew we still wanted to go with a C-channel or a solid rear bumper when it came to the lower portion. Do you want to see the steel, everybody? So this is the steel. That Joe was like, you sure you want to do this thick? This is C6 by 13 C-channel. And the 6 is the outer edge, so the C of this is actually 6 inches from edge to edge, and the 13 means 13 pounds per foot. So this front bumper and rear bumper both weigh about 65-ish pounds. Secondly, I read a lot of comments where they said, when you go to do bumpers, make them C-channel, make them C-channel, make them C-channel, make them C-channel. There was repetitive comments on how to do that. We need to make sure that this can actually carry a spare tire and be offset. Now, how are we gonna do that? Can we attach it to the tailgate? Can we attach it to the bumper? Do we attach it onto a spindle? How do we fabricate this to make it all work and still look good, and then the Jeep can also function? That's a lot of things to kind of check off, but the history of this is to make it look pretty much what it looked like a long time ago. Now the next step is putting it pen to paper, right? So some of those design factors. When we figured out the rear bumper, we decided we didn't want to do the bumperettes. I initially did want to do them. I found a good supplier to put both of those on the left and right side, but after looking at it, just overall, I didn't like the look. I thought it would have looked original, but it just didn't fit what we were going for. And then next up to bat was, let's figure out what we want to do with kind of some different mounting locations on this. So I knew I kind of had an idea to make the back bumper multifaceted and versatile. So we decided to weld in hitch receivers on both the left hand and the right hand side. Now you might ask, why'd you weld those onto the left and right hand side? This is to make this Jeep multi-purpose down the road. So we now have hitch receivers which can accept a wide variety of things such as D-rings, tire mounts, bike racks, vices, anything you can shove into a hitch mount, we can put on the back of either side of this Jeep. But the biggest thing that did was give me the idea to be able to hold the tire on one of the hitch mounts, particularly the one on the right side. We knew we wanted to change up the way that this Jeep looks depending on how we're using it, and the way we designed the rear bumper is just that. We are able to completely remove our tire carrier, and now we have two hitch receivers that we can build a rack for, make custom attachments for, and use the Jeep how we need it. Now that all these ideas are down on pen and paper and we've kind of finalized exactly what we wanted, it was time to make a drive down to Locked and Loaded 4x4. Joe's here. He's got his new locked and loaded Ray-Ban Meta.
Be a bumper.
Yeah, tell Meta to make us a bumper. So the goal overall, Alex said, let's start with the rear. That's going to be harder, but we wanted to make it so the tire is offset just like the original Jeeps. How are we going to get this on? How are we going to make it mount? How are we going to make it kind of modular so we can pull the tire off if we want? And there was a lot of thought process, a lot of sketches on, as Joe said, on napkins. That was graphing paper, Joe.
Sorry, it looked like you were at a bar.
I was at a bar, like talking my worries away, my woes away, and drawing this bumper. But we got it all here. So
it did say Red Robin on the back, though.
It said Red Robin, yeah. Joe and Alex down at Locked and Loaded are not only excited to do this kind of project, but they were eager for us to come down and get started. And when we got down there, we knew we were in the right spot. We could have attempted to do it here. I've got a welder, I've got some tools, but a lot of this heavy duty fabrication really needs to be done by a certified professional, and Alex and Joe both are. And not only that, they've done a lot of this style of fabrication, custom framework, custom jobs like this, to where they know what it needs to be done structurally, what looks good, and then also what's going to be safe on the back of this Jeep. So we get down there and it is time to get started. Right away at the rear bumper, the first thing that we need to do is cut brackets out to actually mount the rear bumper to wherever we're having it go to, because it's nice to just have a piece of C-channel, but now how are we getting it to attach to the actual Jeep? So what's going on here is what Alex created was these side brackets made out of 1/4 inch, and these are actually going to weld onto the C-channel on the back side, on both sides, and he got them to sit perfectly flush with the frame rail. And then the bottom side, he made some plates for as well. So we'll have it tying in here and tying it in underneath and be able to weld that completely onto the C-channel, but still be able to remove the bumper. So pretty trick stuff, and yeah, getting it done here at Locked and Loaded. Yeah, I think it's just something more about the simplicity of this is what I'm really enjoying, and one of the key takeaways is just the fact that, I don't know, you just don't see this anymore. You know, everything like we have on our Jeeps, Ryan, we've got Moto-Belt, Crusher, front and rear. The bumpers are beautiful. They're works of art, you know, and it's awesome, but I also feel like there's kind of a level of simplicity to these that if you ding this, dent it, or if you can dent this bumper, I'll be thoroughly impressed. And then the fact of the matter is it's C-channel, right? Like any steel shop, pretty much anywhere in the country, you can pick it up. So, and then I'll say this before we got to a fun point, was we even welded on the hitch receivers. I was thinking like in it. You're like right there. Now it has to be outside the frame rails, of course, wherever we decide to put it. And then I'm assuming we probably will have it like, so the edge of that bracket might be past this. So it might be out a little bit wider, but piece of 2x2 goes in here. Those brackets get welded onto it. And then the 2x2 sits straight up. It's got a pivot point right here with the barns, and then it goes down off to the side of the vehicle. The only thing I'm concerned about is like this spacing of this piece, because the tailgate can't hit it, like this edge. So when this is in the 2x2, it almost has to like sit like, well, but it's gonna sit flush. I guess the only thing with this is.
So then you want this there up against this?
Yeah,
okay,
close as we can. What do you think about that? And then
That's
just
fine.
burning it in, or maybe leave it a little bit. So
I mean, I just think the problem we're having is like, I don't care if it's yours, but I don't want to see like overhang, you know, far out overhang. Like, I don't want to see like things added to it.
No, that's what I want.
I want to keep the rectangle theme going. So whatever we got to do to keep this exact rectangle and, you know, put things inside it or whatever, inside's fine, inside this perimeter. But I don't want to like.
No, I agree. All right, so a little bit of design issue on my part. When I designed these brackets up, I used the factory hitch height on my Wrangler, which sits a few inches lower than the C-channel we're doing. So we've actually changed it, and instead of sitting vertically like that, it's gonna sit sideways. The bushing is going to be welded on, and then the piece of square stock is going to go over horizontally and then up to wherever location we want it. And that way, what we just talked about too, Alex said, when we go to pick the tire back up, it can kind of just set on that too. So we don't have to really dial it in. You can just have it set on a Delrin bushing or a piece that's on there, and that's it. So I think this is going to work better. This is going to be a better solution. Luckily, they have the programmer and everything here to cut it so we can get pieces on the fly and don't have to stop completely, because that wouldn't be fun. All right, so Joe's getting it kind of set up there to do a 45-degree cut on the edge. Joe and Alex holding it to do a 45-degree cut on the edges of the bumpers. That's, I gotta go out and look at the Jeep and see if it was like that from factory, but we kind of like the look better. I think it's gonna make it look a little bit more unique and also just cleans up the edges a little bit from being a flat C-channel. And I say it this quickly, this was a very long process because everything is so ungodly heavy duty on these bumpers. So we got all that cut out, and we go to put all the bolts on and get this thing final kind of mounted up onto the Jeep now that it's welded. And there was one issue that we ran into. When you're custom fabricating, you can only think of so much and you can only do so much. There are limitations to what can be done and what will work. One of those things was the upper mounting bolt for both sides of the rear bumper. Ryan cut to the shot of me trying to tighten this because 1/8 of a turn tightening it would probably be a generous assumption as how far. And this bolt was like 3 inches long.
Who designed this?
Yeah, who designed these bumpers? Now, that's what you're gonna have when you're fabricating. There's only certain ways to be able to make a hitch receiver work, go around the frame, not hit the body mount, and then also still be able to tighten all the bolts. So one little thing and caveat is that's gonna be a little bit trickier to pull that bolt out, but the rest of them are perfect. In our hindsight, I thought about a little bit of a tool while we were there. Actually, it just showed up at the house, and it's one of these like 15-inch extensions that almost converts to like a bicycle chain, so you can put a ratchet down below and then fit it up into a tight spot and use a socket to tighten it up. So I ordered one, it was like 22 bucks. and it's over at the house now. We're gonna use that to do the final tighten, because I'm gonna be honest with you, these are coming off while we get them painted, finished, whatever we're doing with them. So I didn't want to tighten it in all the way just to have it come all the way off. So we have that tool and that problem is solved. All right guys, well, the bumper is on, the hitch receivers are on there, and we got a small section in here. Now for the fun part, got to put the tire carrier on.
What tire carrier?
The one that we got to build.
Okay.
So it's going to be built around this area right here. We got 2 hitch receivers, so we have plenty of room for activities back here. So next up to bat, the tire carrier. The real kind of problem or issues that we had to figure out was a lot of stuff that I did put on pen and paper ahead of time. You know, it's really tricky to try and mount a spare tire offset on a tailgate and then actually be able to open it, because as soon as you would try and open it, it would have contacted our taillight and then the tub pretty quickly after. I guarantee you if we offset it on the tailgate and then went to open it, it probably wouldn't open about a foot until it hit that. The next problem, so mounting this offset, you can't block the taillight. We didn't want to block the right-hand side taillight because then you wouldn't be able to see if we're braking, turning, etc. So we had to mount it over to the far enough to the right where we could still see the taillight. And then the third thing was, how high do we mount this? And Alex actually made a fantastic point. He said, what we're going to try and do is with that wheel is match the hub center to the hub, or the hub center to the top of the tailgate here. So the hub center will be here, and then it's just a matter of putting it over far enough so we can still see the taillight, but it's offset enough, and then ultimately it will be able to swing to the right to get out of the way when we want to drop the tailgate. It's going to be slick when it's all done. It's just, Alex, the look over on Alex, there's a lot to do to get it done. I mean,
no, this is the most important part of fabrication. Stand it back
and look at it, yeah. But yeah, everyone thinks, he made a comment, it's like, it's not just, yeah, slap a C-channel bumper on there, you think it'll be easy. It's not the worst thing to do, but it's a brand new 2025 Wrangler. It's not like there's specifications for any of this, so these guys are nailing it out of the park. But this is gonna be slick, because what this is gonna do is these new brackets here that we designed and we threw together, they're different than the ones I had. So originally, I had the tire actually mounted from the bushing right over here, and then a pin right up here, and it would just swing to the right. This way, the way that this sits will allow us, I'm gonna open the tailgate, will allow us to still, look at that. So still be able to open the tailgate while this is swung down, because before this bracket came up too high and we just couldn't get the look we were going for. So I think that's gonna be really a great way to kind of have it. So we got those in, we got the custom brackets that I designed once and they were a little bit wrong for this build, and then we redesigned. Both of those were kind of put on like this to basically sandwich the inner tire carrier. We ordered a 2-inch DOM bushing from Barnes 4-wheel drive, and we knew that was gonna weld on to part of the tire carrier to let it be able to pivot. So just much like a leaf spring bushing or any weld-on bushing, we had to have a way that this could actually swing down and not just be kind of statically held there. And you also want to put rubber and a bushing sleeve in there, so that way when you're doing this a lot, it doesn't have metal on metal and it's working very smooth. We got that done. We got the tire carrier to slide in. We got both of those plates welded, and then it was time. We used the measurements that we had previously taken to make it offset and also sit at the right location. Joe went over to the chop saw, cut some 2x2 tubing for both the horizontal and the vertical piece. Got all that welded together, mixed with the Moto-built tire mounting plate, which we had to put that on to actually give the tire a way to mount. That was welded on. We had some custom gussets back burned onto that, and then we actually went to AutoZone down the street and got some M14 by 1.5 studs, pushed those through, welded those on the back, so that way it's the same lug nut pattern as the rest of the Jeep, and we can still use our factory lug nuts. When I say this stuff, there is so much, like this video might, I don't know how long it's gonna be, 20, 30 minutes. There is so much more that I'm not telling you how much fabrication goes into it, and it was such a cool process to be a part of a build or a scale like this, to where you can really kind of get it all together and then work it out right there in the moment and not be like, well, that's hat's in for the day. We need to get another part or we can't do it. It was like, no, we're gonna figure it out. So that was the end of the day. We decided to wrap it up because I don't know why we thought we could get all this done in a day, but we did. And we can't get all this done when it's to the quality that Joe and Alex does. So we wrapped it up. And then to the next morning, we walk in and we were pleasantly surprised to see how much progress they had made on the tire carrier. We got a lot done, or Alex did, kind of off camera here. He actually incorporated some more gussets into the tire carrier, capped off, looks like capped off both sides of the tubing, and is just putting a final gusset for the actual wheel mounting surface there, but he even took the time to put Dirt Road CRED's logo into it. So he cut that out on the plasma table, and it looks so cool. So that's like an added touch like that they threw in there, and it's, so when that gets powder coated, maybe we'll put like a different color piece of steel or something behind it so it like shows through. That's really neat, because you should be able to see that too, I'd imagine, where the tire, you see a little bit of it.
Yeah, I measured, so it does stick out below the tire, you can see it.
That'd be cool. That's gonna be really cool. Thanks for that, Alex. That's awesome. That's an added touch, but look at those dimes right there rolling across. That's still toasty, I don't wanna touch it. So the tire's on, you can still see the logo. Those gussets were burned in. There was one last gusset to put up top at the tire carrier location. And what a gusset does, it just gives more strength and more surface area for these two to pull opposing forces to. So we added a custom gusset in there with our logo. And then, lo and behold, after all this fabricating, all this customness, it was time to install it. Yeah, we're gonna use your bolt with a washer. What do you think? I think it'll be good until you give me the cost of the cost of one bolt, huh? Just gotta tighten this up. And we got pins too. We're gonna try two different style of pins, Alex. I got two styles. One is like a quick release kind of job. And then one is like a zinc coated, so I don't know. This one might be a little bit nicer.
Whatever works, stick it in there.
Don't mind if I do. Is this still hot? In case the audience was wondering, it's still hot. Down a little bit, down a little bit. Yeah, check it out. I don't want to touch it because you just burned yourself.
There it is. Let's throw a tire on it.
Let's do it.
Tire sits.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's throw a tire on it. Offset custom. It's kind of trick when it's all like bolted up though. It's like, okay, like that's pretty. It's definitely offset. Hey, you want to pull this out?
Okay.
I think that'll get. Drop it right on Ryan's camera bag. Now let's see, moment of truth. Will it fully open?
It's fully open.
Look at that, Ryan. Fully open, not touching. It works. That'll definitely look cool at the mall parking lot when I open this up like this.
Hopefully no one's parked next to you.
Right. But there was one issue we ran into, and we noticed it pretty quickly, and we foresaw some of these issues happening. Having anything in a hitch receiver, you know, you guys have hauled trailers, you have anything in your hitch receiver, it tends to rock. There's tolerances in there, it can move around, it can shake a little bit. With the weight being so far to the middle, it was kind of tilting. So the tire carrier was tilting, and it wasn't from their fabrication, from them being level, it was the fact that this was in a hitch receiver and all the weight was going to one side. But Joe was like, this is just not, he's just like, this is just not, like, we're not letting it roll out like this. It's gotta be refined and perfect. And initially we were talking and he's like, we gotta put some sort of bracket in here to actually hold the weight of the tire carrier and maybe be able to let it rest on there. And initially when he said it, I'm not gonna lie, I was like, man, I don't know if I wanna weld something into the middle where it's just so open and bare, because when we have the tire off, I just want it to kind of be smooth. We talked about it, we looked at it, and he came up with an idea to cut some more 2x2, cut 2 more custom plates on the plasma table, and almost make it like a little fork like this so the tire carrier could be captured inside of it, and that was all the difference that it needed. As soon as we flipped it down and let it drop into there, not only did it hold it front to back so it couldn't move, but it also held it from dropping down any further. We still have that hitch pin anti-rattle coming in, and that's gonna make it even better, but this was just the final touch to this that really made the tire carrier work and function as we wanted it to. There was just one last thing, and that was to bolt the plate on, or find a place for our license plate to mount. I had so many ideas in my head with this. Do we make a bracket that comes off the top of the C channel to the left, kind of like the J case sat underneath the taillight? Do we use a magnet that maybe just clips on to the back puts it wherever we need to, and then maybe put a tether to a factory bolt. So we ultimately decided, let's just put it in the center. Let's drill 2 holes through this super thick steel, put the license plate right in the center, and it looks good in our eyes. It's clean, it's symmetrical, and the 6-inch C-channel is like the same size as a license plate, so it kind of just sits there exactly the way we want it. Now, without further ado, let's turn this Jeep around here in the shop and show you all this hard work and what it looks like. On today's hero of the video, we are checking out one of our followers' father who was actually deployed in World War II during 1941. Now, his dad was a P-38 mechanic, and their unit was actually in the Special Forces who crossed Rommel's lines battling in Africa. He was always a positive guy, writes our follower, and he said the Luftwaffe bombing was scary, but he didn't have to dig foxholes. So he was kind of trying to be a positive guy and making the best out of his situation. And he said he actually eventually spent time in Italy as the American front advanced, then 2 years in France. So thank you so much for submitting for this hero of the video. And if you guys want to have one of your veterans who served in World War II honored in this channel, be sure to submit it. We will leave all the info down below. All right, well, let's just say the tire carrier is sturdy. I don't think you're getting much more than this. There's no CG. I'm completely sitting on it here, as much as I probably shouldn't be because there's mud right here and I'm getting it all over my nice pants. But let me climb down and we'll show you how this thing is operational. So we've got everything kind of dialed in. We're already starting to grow some surface rust, so we got to get these things coated ASAP. But look at the offset. Look at the offset to the right there. You got so much more real estate over here to the left. And honestly, I'm sure you guys kind of saw the process, but the way that they smoothed out these edges too, got the hitch receivers in, license plate in the center. But I think the thing you guys are waiting for is like, how does it look to actually open and close it? So the first thing you have to do is pull the pin here. You got to pull the pin on the back, which we're going to adjust this and probably get a different pin because this one is not, it's not really wanting to pull out as easy. Well, I say that and it pulls out really easy. It wasn't really wanting to pull out as easy because of a rubberized coating. But once you have the pin pulled out, this is where things get interesting. So it's not as convenient as the normal grocery getter Jeep. You do have to put some force into it, but you just simply push on this side. And once you have it to about there, you can just let it drop. And that's it. Now I have full access. And when you talk about different things as far as clearance, you see where our tolerances were, right? This tailgate still had to be able to clear the top of the hitch mounted bracket. And then also when it's fully opened, not contact the 2x2 there. So a lot of moving pieces with this and really a lot of technicalities. But I do really like the fact that if we have this off or say we want to remove it, all I've got to do is basically pull the hitch pin from back here, and now I can slide this carrier out because I can move it around. Slide this out, now we just have a solid bumper. I'll say, if you don't feel like picking up a tire every time you go to open and close this tailgate, it is kind of an issue. So that is one thing I will tell you guys, like if you don't want to open something like this up custom, I mean, it turns into, you got to pick up a big tire to put it back. But for our purposes, there really wasn't any other way to do so. And I think like when you look at it, Ryan, I'll get a shot back here. Like when you see the tire kind of offset to the right on the vehicle, it does look really, really neat. I mean, when it's on the ground. And then also say I had to change a spare, zip the lug nuts off, and my tire's already on the ground. So now I can just wheel it right to the, say that one gets a flat, I can wheel it right to it, put the spare on here, put it back, and then flip it over. Now it's not terrible to pick up. It's got some weight to it. But once you get it to about there, this is what we're talking about, Ryan. If you want to see over here the shot, I would go over there and look down this way of it latching in. So like to kind of see, you'll see like what he meant by left to right. So as you're dropping this tire carrier in, this is what Joe meant from like front to back. See how that kind of wants to sit like that? Give it a little bit of a push. And now it drops into place. So that was something that he wanted. He was like, I really want it to sit in there nicely. And it has a little bit of wobble, but it's all from the actual hitch. Once we put the pin back in, like so, it doesn't have, the hitch is the only thing that's wobbling, which kind of stinks, but just the hitch. When we were driving down the highway with this thing, I kept looking out of the rear view and it was sitting very, very solid. But what else are you gonna do? I don't think you could make a cooler bumper than this for the build that we're going for. Yes, it's inconvenient. I would say, Ryan, would you agree?
Yeah.
For me, if I'm gonna do that all day, Like if I'm like going running errands and I need to open the tailgate all day, yeah, it could get old. Then say you know that like, hey, for the next week, we're gonna be doing a lot of stuff, just take the tire off. It just, you take the hitch pin out, pull the tire assembly out, and then you can put it back in when you're done. And now you have just a complete open thing. But yeah, I think it's nailed on this the way that it should be, and I just couldn't be more excited. I think the last thing I wanna do is, because we don't have a camera sticking up here, I'm actually gonna put the original piece back on here. So that little cover for the Black Rhino wheels, and that's gonna be it for the back end. This thing is 100% the most solid piece of steel that I've ever seen. This C-channel here, I believe you could probably use it to like reinforce structures and hold entire roofs and like platforms up with it, because it is so ungodly heavy and thick. But that's what we wanted for a build like this. It's not overkill. You get aftermarket bumpers and they start weighing the same as this. But with this, we wanted to make it as strong as possible, and kind of fitting the theme of the military kind of rebuild was making something that's very robust and that's going to last. We do need to get this thing powder coated, so that's a huge thing. We're gonna go drop it off. We got a couple other things to drop off at powder coat, but we gotta get this thing to powder coat because it's already starting some surface rust, and then finish it off in the color of our choice, which we will reveal to you once we have all of the bumpers done. AKA, we will also be doing something on the front bumper. If you didn't notice during the beginning of the video, there's no bumper on that currently, but there is a winch. Follow and stay tuned for the front bumper build because that is just as cool as the back one. Maybe not as cool because it doesn't have a drop-down tire carrier, but still very, very cool. I want to end this video with a massive thank you to Joe and Alex down at Locked and Loaded. They are not only our great friends, but they are probably some of the most skilled fabricators and just experts in Jeep fabrication, bumpers, building, whatever you need them to do, they can pull it off. And I'm just so lucky. Ryan and I are so lucky to be able to call them friends of ours. So if you guys are looking to get work done like this, now I don't know if how many of these custom bumpers they want to do, because I talked to Joe this morning and he said, do we really want to make more for other people, or do you want to just have them just for this build specifically? But if you want work done and you're in the area or even out of the area, definitely reach out to them and tell them we sent you. And before we let you go, we got our decal of the video. Let's throw it on to the Jeep. All right, guys, so we're gonna add a decal to the back tailgate. This is actually somewhere I didn't know it was, but with the militaryschnitzels.com, they give you diagrams, and they actually said a 6-inch star could go on the back tailgate, kind of right on the left-hand side of the tailgate and not on the bumper. So we're gonna put this one here. I got a little tiny bubble there, which I'm gonna fix too. There's our decal of the video. I'm not as happy because I got a bubble in it, but we'll fix it. That's gonna be a wrap for today, guys. We got the decal on and our bumper is completed. If you wanna see more, make sure you like and subscribe to the channel if you like this style of build. From Ryan behind the camera and me here, we want you to get out there and earn yours.